Good morning, church. I wanted to take a moment because someone asked me yesterday while I was out and about shopping for groceries. Somebody asked me what church I was part of, and I had to explain to them that I'm basically a missionary and that I basically go around encouraging people to go to church. And so I don't want any confusion with regards to what I do. I have a contract with Department of Defense from when I was living in Hawaii with my adopted father, Richard Carl Erickson, who basically is my sponsor where this is concerned with regards to the Masons. Because I'm going to tell you, I would never have been able to do what I do if it wouldn't have been for him and his sister and my mom and their teachings. And so I made the contract was made on Hickam Air Force Base after we had after I had attended a convention for the International Order of Job's Daughters and was announced as the heir. The reason I'm talking about this is because this has now come to life. It was my responsibility and my vow as a Job's daughter at that time to follow the word and to do as the bride had done in fighting corruption and exposing the people that are stealing kids and killing old folks. And so I want to make it clear to everybody because people think I don't have credentials when I absolutely do. In fact, the type of credentials that I have are international. So I can minister anywhere around the world. I'm not just bound to the United States. And according to Michigan law, all I have to do is show that I've worked in a church in order to gain my credentials, for the state of Michigan. So I am legally a minister, according to the law and according to the word. It is prophecy that the Masons pick the heir. I was drawn. We used straws in order to draw the person that was picked out of our Bethel. Different Bethels that attended the convention might have picked different ways that they chose in order to pick their choice for the draw. I believe I was picked because at the time I was either a messenger or a chaplain at the time. I don't remember exactly that, but I do remember that we had a kidnap caper, which basically is a very fancy word for a huge slumber party. Basically, what Jobies would do is they would, and it was you gave full permission. They would come in to your house while you were sleeping, and they would snatch you up and take you to go out to eat, or we would do different activities. We went to the beach and to go eat out in our pajamas. And so, again, there were a lot of, this wasn't the only activity, but during this course of this, we had a huge slumber party during our convention where all of the Job's daughters got together in a school and we spent the night together. Well, of course, me being Tina was the first one to sleep. And so I started talking in my sleep. Well, they knew it then. So the next day, I guess it was the next night or after that or something happened where we had to do the draw. So they had us do draw straws. And I tried my best to wait until one of the last because I was hoping that I wouldn't draw that short straw. And I did. And so I swore up and down, they cheated. So we did a second draw. And the second draw, and this is the irony in all of it. The second draw, I drew the short straw again. So they said, Tina, that's it. You're the pick. And the reason they were so happy that I was the pick, because I don't think any one of them wanted to have that responsibility, because it is just a big responsibility. The other part was I was the only person with a head wound. So, which is the description of the word. And I had gone through things. You have to be broken in order to even qualify for the position as a lifer. And so when I was drawn the second time from a completely different Bethel in California, through completely different means, they were like, this is it, because they had never had that happen before where the same person had drawn twice. So I received the wild card. In the process of that, the military who had my records, it's considered a great honor to be part of, to just be named in this court. And so they immediately sought for us to have several meetings on Hickam Air Force Base with the DMLA. And in the process of this, we received our instruction. And I was also informed repeatedly that I do have diplomatic immunity as long as it is used for the purpose of the Bible as it is written. And so me being as studied as I am, again, I had very good teachers. My adopted father, and I am a daddy's girl. I love my dad to death. To me, he's my dad. Doesn't matter. The blood doesn't make any difference. I trust him in the aspect of, he would never have allowed me to do such a thing if he didn't think I was capable. And when it did come about that I was picked for this, he made sure I hit the books. And people don't understand that we didn't keep TVs in our house like that. We were very limited as to the television access. The only stuff my mom would let us watch really was the news and MASH 4077. So after that, everything we did was in the school books. And my brother, Steve, he's learning disabled, and he's special needs. He also has other disabilities I don't want to talk about because it's really not anybody's business. I don't want to blast out his business, but it is pretty obvious that Steve was not somebody that would have potential for the level of education that my mom and my dad were giving to me. So to them, there came a point when public school to them was like extra credit for me. And I'm not trying to brag or boast or puff up anything. I'm just trying to explain the teaching and the schooling that I got in reference. We also were around military all our young lives. And if you don't know military language, it includes Constitution. And so you can't go onto a military base for a long period of time without learning Constitution, because everything the military does revolves around the Constitution. So it's very hard to go through and to be a real honest military brat on base for the amount of years that I lived on there and not know at least parts of the Constitution. So when it came about with the situation with Bremerton, there were things that were asked of me, like when did I memorize the Constitution? Because they, at that point, knew everything that I had been through from the day I was born, by the time it had come to where I had been sworn in by NCIS. So I wanted to make that clear. I absolutely do have the credentials. I do have the capability to open a church if I chose to. I just choose to do things online just because I can reach more people and have a bigger effect. Because the things I do, whether people realize it or not, they go international. And so there's people that I've ran into on the streets that know me and that have come to visit South Haven from other countries, where maybe necessarily people from South Haven may not recognize me because they're not in that circle of people from the Bible and from families and history and such. My father, Richard Erickson, his family came from Norway, Sweden, Finland. The reason I'm bringing this up is because he is an heir to Leif Erikson and Eric the Red, who were actually persecuted by the UK and kicked out, and had their royal crowns and their titles were stolen from them because they chose Christianity over Catholicism. And see, this is a big issue at that time in history. If you knew about it, then you just know. And this is a lot of the problem that I have with the education system here in the United States. They do not teach these things. So we've got a whole country that's walking around blind, that doesn't know that they're missing out on the best experience in the world, because they're not educated on the word. So they don't know. They're not trained to see the actual things as they're taking place and unfolding with regards to prophecy and the word. And so in order to get that, you have to know a minister like me that has been trained and taught and has the study in them in order to give you the education. So we are really teachers. I want to bring up the point that Masons are non-denominational, which means we are schooled on all the original foundational religions. All religion has the same foundation, which includes the Ten Commandments, which includes no lying, stealing, cheating, committing adultery, no same-sex acts, all of these things. the thing about it is I tend to take things from a different perspective just because I do have a schooling and understanding of the word, in knowing that us as ministers, we're not supposed to turn anybody away, regardless of their sin. We're supposed to counsel everybody, even people that have hurt us. And so in the process of giving counsel to people that hurt us, that's how we learn how to heal. And so one of my problems was healing a long time ago. I don't have a problem with that now. I'm not afraid. I have a full belief in God and faith in him, and know, especially after watching all of this stuff transpire with the Epstein case and everything that's gone on with it, with the Clintons and all of these people that are finally going to jail. I want to commend Norway and Finland, because they are aware of Mur Erickson, who was he's my adopted grandfather, and he came from that area. And as a renowned Mason who was known around the world, I guarantee you it is of great pleasure for them to start arresting some of these people who are on the Epstein list that are coming from their areas of the world. So I want people to have an understanding of that. And, some people say, oh, she's a female. How can she be a minister? Well, I can tell you there are so many verses in the Bible that give permission for women to be ministers. The first one being John, that I'm going to bring up, is John 4:39, that says the Samaritan woman becomes a missionary to her town, testifying that Jesus told her everything she did and everything that she needed to do. This is very, very important with regards to ministry, because that is the purpose. Jesus tells this woman, the Samaritan woman, that to go and be a missionary, which is one of the reasons he wants us to trust in God, because in trusting in God and following the word, that's where we get our blessings from. You can't just, it takes more than just a couple verses and knowing the 10 Commandments. You have to know the history, not just of the Bible, but also of the world, not just from your country. You have to know world history in order for this to apply. Timothy 2:11 and 12 does does talk about women not ministering without men. However, Judges 4 says Deborah encourages Barak to take leadership of Israel's army, but he refuses. So Deborah winds up taking leadership herself, which will tell you in the Bible that it does speak. And there's books in the Bible, such as Ruth, that talk about women in leadership, regardless of them being ministers, actual missionaries or not. It is a responsibility of all of us that are believers in order to preach and teach the entire counsel. So you've got ministers out here that are not being taught the whole counsel, which is part of the problem. And if you don't have an understanding, it's very hard to get into it until you do learn the truth. Acts 18:26, Romans 16:1-2, Philippians 4:3. And my favorite, which is Acts 16:4-15, Lydia, she was a dealer in purple cloth who supported Paul and became a key supporter of the church. Which is, everybody knows I love purple. And part of the reason for that is because in the Bible, it says we're supposed to drape ourselves in purple in order to show we are royalty. God wants all of us to know that we are royalty. I also love the color blue, but it speaks of purple and scarlet red in particular. And my purpose in this is because if you don't have an understanding of the word in its entirety, and you don't, you're not schooled on it, you may be giving a misinformation. And I don't ever want to see that, because when you give misinformation with regards to the word in the Bible, you are responsible for that. That is a heavy, heavy load to bear. And so if you're not educated on the word correctly, you have to answer to that. And God will hold you responsible. It says it repeatedly in the word. This is one of the reasons I take what I do so seriously, because I vowed that vow. God kept making sure when I wasn't listening, that he showed me, okay, Tina, click, we're going to do this to you until you wake up. Click, we're going to do that to you until you wake up. Click, we're going to do this over here. He does that when he's trying to get your attention. And so when you're not fully listening and honoring the word as you're supposed to, he will consequence you for that. And it may be, you have to understand, God allows us, he's not the one who puts us through trials. Satan is the one who does that. God allows that for, so that he can, it's called the crushing, so that he can crush you into position and take away. The crushing allows you to be formed so that you can do God's work more effectively. Again, I don't take money. I don't ask for donations. My reason for that is because that is not my purpose. My purpose is to teach and preach the word so that I can encourage people to go to church and to find ministers that are actually teaching the whole counsel. I love to see it when people come back to me, and I have it happen a lot, where people come back to me and they tell me thank you because of certain counsel that I've given to them. So don't think that this is just an overnight thing for me. This has been my life's work. I have made this my life's work because I made promises and oaths that I knew that when God called me home, I was going to have to answer to. So those of you who are walking in the flesh, pray. I pray for all of you that God heals you and that he helps you to find your way to good counsel that will help you to learn the word correctly, along with the history of not just our country, but of the world, to better help you to apply God's word to your life. So when you do find a church, I do hope that you go in there and that you ask for prayer so that I can touch more people and help encourage even more people to get into the word and to get into church. One of the other things that was brought up yesterday in the course of my day, which I think was really, really positive that I want to bring up, is I was asked the path with which I lost all my weight. And this is a really big thing. God wants us to protect our vessels so that we can continue to use them for his purpose. And in doing so, one of the things I saw that really resonated with me when I was going through the situation with my daughter, and this was after I'd had head injury and I'd had both these head injuries, and I had had a bunch of other situations that led me to see that God was trying to wake me and shake me. Okay. So in the course of all of this, I realized I was not taking good care of my vessel and I was going to die if I didn't change. And the doctors were telling me that. My friends around me were telling me, you don't look good. You're not, they could see that I wasn't living a very healthy lifestyle. And so the first thing I did, and this was my 10-year anniversary for quitting cigarettes. Tobacco will be August 1st, August 1st of this year. And so 10 years I have gone without smoking cigarettes. And so that is such a huge, huge thing for me. That was the biggest thing. After I did that, I said, well, I feel so good. Let me go further. In the course of going further, I wound up losing 180 pounds and changing my diet out completely. I lost a lot of people that I thought really cared about me that really didn't and were just latched on, that were using and abusing me. And so once I got all of that out of the way and got my life completely cleaned up, this is what you see now. So it took me a long time to remember and to heal. And some of it involved me doing and saying things over and over and over again in order to help and to push myself, because I knew that this was so important, especially with regards to the Epstein case. And for those of you who don't watch my page, I have been running my mouth about this ever since Hillary Clinton ran for office. Ever since then, I have been blowing my horn, hollering about they need to arrest her. They were involved with Epstein. And there's a lot more that I can't specifically talk about because I know that there's a lot of people that are going to be prosecuted in all of this, not just for the Epstein case, but for other things involving fraud in our country. One of the people is Elizabeth Warren. When she was knowingly taking donations from the indigenous, from the university that she had worked for, no, and then when she got the blood test and it was determined that she was not indigenous, she didn't apologize. She didn't offer to return the money. She just kept on like, oh, nothing to see here. And, that's fraud. That is fraud. Here all this time, she was claiming all of these things, knowing that she was lying. Did she stop? That part. That's where there's a problem here. So in the course of that part of the situation, that's where we've led things to with regards to our government. When you have politicians that are so blatant as to commit fraud and then use their political status to get out of the consequences, like people like Elizabeth Warren and Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, and Kamala Harris, and so many others. There are so many others that have used their political position in order to get out of consequences. And it's time for that to change. How are we expecting our youth to take us seriously as elders if we're not consequencing people that commit these types of heinous crimes? In my situation, people lied on me. They committed defamation in order to have my daughter wrongfully removed in order to shut me up because they were mad. They were caught. It had nothing to do with me per se. They were just mad they were caught. And so in the course of that, yes, I called treason in Judge Dodge's courtroom. And I did it on behalf of the police. So for those of you who thought it was a joke, no, it was not. And Judge Dodge can actually be held liable because he did not see that go to Congress. So there's no confusion here. That's called obstruction of justice. When you actually have somebody that's a qualified person, like I am, who comes forth to the court and it does it things correctly and says, I call treason against the last 4 former presidents of the United States because they were in collusion with this, now we have a problem. You've got other countries that are standing here looking at us. They're watching us as we claim to be the leaders of the new free world, allowing these former presidents to get away with this type of behavior. And it's time for it to stop. That's the one thing everybody in the country agrees with. And if our government has to collapse for that to happen, then so be it. Give it back to the indigenous. It belongs to us anyway. So trying to sit here and postpone what the Bible is saying is inevitably going to happen is foolishness. It doesn't make sense, especially if you claim to be God-fearing. There's something wrong with people who are okay with allowing these people to continue to do what they're doing and covering it up. That's obstruction of justice when you continue to allow these behaviors to occur. I have serious head injury because people kept, and other injuries because people kept trying to assassinate me because I'm the one who found the DVR. I also have other stuff that's going on with the Pokagans because they're not from the United States. They're from Spain and Guatemala. They're not of the United States. So for them to sit here and to continue to fraud my people, I'm supposed to stand up and say something. And anybody who tries to stop me is violating my rights as a victim. You're violating my civil rights for you to tell me to shut up. And that's where the problem is. You don't kick people out of places because they're hollering, I'm a victim, help. You're supposed to hold my hand and help me have the courage and the strength to continue forth to pursue the exposure of these people. That part. No self-righteous person would ever allow this to continue. And it's time for us all as Americans to put our foot down and to make it stop. And you don't do it violently. You use the court like we're supposed to. That was my purpose in the first place. That's why I called treason in the courthouse to begin with. Because I didn't want to go on the streets and do what I saw all these BLM people do. They destroyed half of our country burning buildings up, and looting and robbing people? Are you kidding me? That's not a Christian. That's not a believer at all. How dare you think that you're going to use something like that in order to claim you're trying to find justice? You don't fight fire with fire like that. Violence is in response to violence is never the answer. That's the whole reason I got on my microphone and said it's time for me to do what I vowed to do as a Job's daughter, as I was appointed to do by the Masons. And I take that very seriously because in the end, when God calls me home, he's going to ask me, Tina, I anointed you with that. I anointed you with that position. Why didn't you do what I told you to do? I have to answer to God, and he's way more important than any of you are. So listen to what I'm telling you with God's love. And those of you who are triggering me, thank you, because it's helping me remember to get the details out so that everybody has a better understanding of exactly what I went through in the course of this situation. I also want to send my love out to my family and let you know that I'm doing very well and I'm actually having a wonderful time and that I'm not letting any of this stress me out or steal my joy. I actually am really pleased with how I'm feeling in response to all of this because it's actually setting me free. Doing this is setting me free. And I have to answer to God. God is allowing me to, it's like a lifting of a weight off of my shoulders. Little does anybody know. With God's love. I also want to make a point to say to the woman that I spoke to yesterday and while I was shopping that I will post again the Church of God listings on the map that I had posted last night so that you can see the different churches. I have not met any of the ministers. If I have, they've not introduced themselves as ministers of the Church of God in Christ. So I don't know any of these guys personally, but I do recommend that people go to church and you start studying and learning the word because it's so relevant in what's going on right now with the Epstein case. With God's love. God bless America. Have a blessed day. Back the badge and support the Purple Gang.